Nada and Trump's legal team in a Florida court, asking Judge Aileen Cannon to dismiss the case for what they say is prosecutorial misconduct.
The first hearing Judge Aileen Cannon has actually held since she indefinitely postponed the documents case. The proceedings quickly devolved into a shouting match.
The chaos that broke out in the courtroom, including yelling, "You are living a fantasy." That sort of stuff is happening right now. Will, go ahead.
That's right. So Judge Aileen Cannon held hearings yesterday. This is on the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case that was brought by Special Counsel Jack Smith.
Accusing Special Counsel Jack Smith, the Biden administration, and the National Archives of colluding to prevent Mr. Trump from winning the 2024 election.
So she had indefinitely postponed the trial date to begin the trial of the former president. However, they're having to go through a litany of pretrial motions. And some of these motions were brought up yesterday. Two of them were to dismiss the case outright based off of prosecutorial misconduct in some cases, such as maybe potentially offering the defense counsel of one of the defendants judgeship, dangling that before him. And that broke chaos out into the courtroom as the prosecutors and the defense were both displeased with each other, shouting back and forth, pounding the tables.
David Harbach, arguing for the special counsel's office, got a little bit passionate in his argument. And in a back and forth with Judge Cannon, at one point, things got so heated that Cannon told Harbach, "I'm going to ask that you calm down."
And also some issues that were brought up. The judge said, "I'm not even certain the jury can understand the legal nuances that you're trying to put forward here, prosecution."
Judge Cannon said she would take all of these arguments under advisement, did not say when we would get a ruling. So really, it could come anytime she decides to.
So as a matter of the status of where this stands, the case will be going through all these pretrial motions, but the trial date is indefinitely postponed. And if it continues to go like this, I'm not sure that many of these issues will ever get resolved, which really draws a big question mark if this case will ever make it to trial.
When you hear that these cases are devolving into legitimately the judge, Aileen Cannon, having to yell things like, "You're going to need to calm down," like quoting Taylor Swift, I feel like is what's happening here. She didn't quote Taylor Swift. I added that part to it. She didn't say, to quote Taylor Swift, "You're going to need to calm down," but was yelling that at these lawyers as they started to go back and forth about the story that was presented of whether a judgeship was being essentially bribed, dangled,
right,
for this to happen.
He said that during a meeting with prosecutors, they mentioned the fact that he was recommended for a judgeship, and he said the insinuation was that he should try to get Nada to cooperate with this investigation. This is something, of course, that got a very sharp reply from prosecutors.
This is related to the Mar-a-Lago documents case, which you may think, "Hey, Logan, last time you said this was permanently on hold." It is still on hold because of all of these pretrial issues, as Will was saying earlier. But they still have to work those way through those pretrial issues.
Right.
But this judge is thinking, we may not get there.
That's right. And so yesterday was the first since her postponement of the trial indefinitely of these hearings they'll be holding on pretrial issues. Now, they know that these will at least go through late July, but even that won't resolve all of the pretrial issues if they go perfectly.
Yeah, and there is
to get to a trial.
CNN, again, I read their report. And, their theory, or what they want to float out there, is that because this is a Trump-appointed judge, they're playing the long game here to try to get him to be elected and then for the case to be dismissed. Because President Trump can pretty much get himself out of it at that point. But that's not really what's happening here.
Right.
What's happening here is there are so many issues. There's so much corruption. There's issues with how the documents were obtained, the photos that were taken, the plans that were made, the deadly force. All of these issues that keep coming up in these pretrial situations makes the case just fraught with error.
That's right. And every time something new is discovered, whether it be the filing that was just a couple weeks ago that said, yeah, we had originally told the court that the documents were preserved exactly as we found them. That wasn't accurate. Actually, some of it got mixed up, so we mishandled these documents we were accusing the president of mishandling. Yeah. Those issues keep coming up because the Jack Smith team isn't necessarily doing a great job at running this prosecution. And so yesterday, some of these issues that were coming forward was that the defendant, Nauta, he was wanting to have his charges dismissed based on the grounds that he was being selectively prosecuted because he didn't cooperate with the government early on. And that's actually where his attorney, Woodward, brought up the fact that the prosecutor had dangled a judgeship before him.
Right.
Now, the prosecutor pushed back, yelled, screamed, slammed his fist on the table in the courtroom saying, "This is a fantasy."
Fantasy. Garbage argument is what he said also. This is a garbage argument. Mr. Woodward's story of what happened at that meeting is a fantasy. They said as banging on his hand on the lectern in front of him. It did not happen. Again, a bunch of, he said, she said at that point, and the judge is saying, yeah, we're going to probably take this to the people to decide.
Right. So that one, she did not rule on the bench on whether or not to throw his charges out. Yeah. That doesn't mean that she couldn't. She didn't rule anything on it at that point. That she'll rule later at whether or not to grant his dismissal of the charges. But also, it did start to get back and forth with the prosecutor and the defense attorney of saying, "Well, you didn't record the meeting we had," and then the defense counsel saying, "I'll go under oath on the stand to testify to it." So it's getting heated, it's chaotic, and that's not even the end-all be-all of the issues that they had yesterday.
Like you said, this could take not only this one, but this will take at least through the mid to late summer.
That's right. And then there was another issue, and this is where the judge was concerned about the jury's ability to understand it.
Yeah.
And this is where some of the charges that were filed, and these were all the defendants brought this claim in asking for the charges to be thrown out, where some of the charges read exactly the same or were worded almost precisely the same. So it got confusing whether or not it was the same charge or if it were different counts of the charge. And the prosecution's explanation was, "Don't worry, we'll explain it all to the jury when it gets to them." And the judge was then saying, now she didn't say, "I'm going to throw the case out on these grounds," but she said still have to make a ruling, but did say she was concerned about the jury's ability to understand the legal nuances in the case at a future trial. Yeah. And the quote from CNN says, "Real people have to decide these issues." I also think that was a little bit of shade towards the prosecutor and the defense saying, "You're not acting like real people right now."
Yeah. No one goes into court. I mean, yes, courts get very heated. And look, maybe this is what we need. Maybe that's what we need in America. Maybe we need to go a bit back to the olden days. We need to go back to the parliamentary hearings of the United Kingdom where you just scream and yell, chaos breaks out, people clap, people boo, people cheer. There was a while there where that kind of went away in America. I'm not so sure we don't need a little bit of it. It's kind of like what goes on currently in the Capitol.
Right.
Like, I don't care for a lot of it, but a little bit of it, you are you are representing someone in this situation, or you are representing your people. And if sometimes you got to kick it up a notch, okay. But in this instance, the judge is even saying, real people have to decide these, not you screaming, "This is a fantasy." It does feel very television. And it's sad. It's not on TV though, right? We don't get
to watch. No,
we don't get to watch it. The best we're going to get,
not on TV.
The best we're going to get is 24-hour news, live tweeting it, as you said, live posting it on the side of your screen in red. They all went with red.
They did.
I don't know why. They all, even the colors of the channels that aren't red. Like you say, Fox, the main color is probably not red. It's probably blue. But they went red on the.
I wonder if it's an easier contrast to read.
I'm sure there's a reason. There's a ratings and advertising driven, nature to all of it, which, it brings up a whole nother conversation too. I was thinking about that this morning, just driving in. It's the fairness of news media is obviously, because I was listening to this 7-page article from CNN that came out this morning. And you do think about how as soon as, look, it's just part of the nature of the business. So this is a world filled with consumerism, and it's a commercial business, and that's fine. But as soon as the news media and advertising became hand in hand, the idea of completely objective news dissolved. Or you could even say advertising or even federal funding. So you could say, what they give to NPR, because all of a sudden, even if the advertiser is not dictating what's on the show, they certainly can dictate in some ways what's not on the show. And they can be a decision maker on how things are proceeding because they can withhold their funding, which is the only way these networks make money. Now, there are independent news sources. There's people like us who, by the way, are not supported traditionally by advertisers. There's been advertisers here and there, but for the most part, 99% of, more than that, 99.9% of what we do here at the ACLJ and on this broadcast is by you, powered by you. And what we've always told you at the ACLJ, what I've always told you is, I will not tell you what you want to hear. I will tell you the truth. That's going to be people like you who support the organization and who financially back it and give monthly. And I appreciate that tremendously, but it also stops us from being filtered by anyone. The only thing we are being filtered by maybe is because we are still on terrestrial radio and because of who we are. There's certain words we're not using. That's about it. No one's telling us what topic. We didn't get a call from corporate this morning saying, here's what the headline is. And when you read this sort of 8-page, good for CNN. They gave a very broken down version of it. But of course, they have to end it with some form of, hinting at a conspiracy, hinting at this is only happening to delay a case to the point because this judge feels like, she has to do this because Trump appointed her. Again, it goes back to the start of this conversation, which is all judges are appointed by somebody. So then you can say the same for pretty much any case in any way. If it's a case that involves a Republican or a Democrat, that because X person, whether it's Barack Obama or Jimmy Carter for that matter, put them in place.
They appointed judges.
Yeah, appointed judges. Their job is not to be just controlled by whatever president or future president or past president, not to say they don't have their own political beliefs or feelings. And by the way, they should be able to do that. I believe freedom of speech for justices, judges, and all of that does not end because they are taking these roles. But I want to hear from you. Give me a call at 1-800-684-3110. When you hear these cases are devolving this way, does it give you more hope because you see that the absurdity of some of these cases are starting to, wiggle their way into the American zeitgeist, where even CNN is going, this is chaos. Okay, this can't, the judge is saying it can't happen. We think it can't happen. Do you feel that way? Or does it just make you feel like we're getting closer and closer to a catastrophic meltdown here in this country?